How do you enter a unit correctly? Let's talk about it.
I'm Kenny Molotov, licensed plumber, professional magician, and entertainer. On this channel, I go through the ins and outs of my career in plumbing. I take you through a day in the life and we talk tools, theory, and mindset. I'm trying to give you an arsenal of knowledge and an online resource so you can take this trade head on and find yourself successful on the other end. Click subscribe, hit that bell notification, and let's talk pipes.
Peeps, Kenny Molotov here at home, and this is a really important topic, especially if you're going into the service side of plumbing, and this is something that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. And through my experience in my apprenticeship and all my mistakes, I want to give you 5 tips on how to enter someone's unit correctly and as safely as possible for you and also the company you're working for, and of course for the building that you're working for as well. So here's a couple of things that you have to know. You can get into some hairy situations if you walk into somebody's unit without permission or all these other things I'm going to talk about. You can potentially come down with lawsuits. People really get upset when you enter their house without their permission, and for good reason. If somebody just walked into your house, you think you're being burgled, you know what I'm saying? So it is a really touchy subject, but with a few of these rules, I think you're going to have a much safer time doing it if you keep these in mind. So let's talk about tip number 1, and something that might be a little bit obvious to you. Don't enter a unit you don't have permission to enter. So in other words, what this also means is if there's a superintendent, bring the superintendent. My general opinion about this is if there's a superintendent, you're going to start with them and you're going to end with them. Make sure that the superintendent is walking you to the unit you're supposed to go into and they are using the key themselves to open the door. That way a lot of liability is off of you and off of the company you work for, okay? That's why whenever there is a superintendent, they're usually really good about this, by the way. Normally they are the ones taking me to the units because that's who the building trusts to do that. But if they're not those type of individuals, just politely ask them to come with you, okay? So always enter a unit you know you have permission entering, and if there's a superintendent present, ask them to come do it with you, because there's also a really big benefit to having more than one person there. That way, if for some reason there is some form of dispute, you have a bystander there essentially that also experienced the same thing you experienced. So that's how you cover your tail. Have the superintendent there, and if you can, start and stop every job with the superintendent. Open the door with the super, close the door with the super. So the second thing that I would say is on the list of hierarchy is always knock before entering. And again, usually the superintendent is doing it with you, but if it's you knock on the door, you wait, you go, "Hello, plumber," and you wait there, and you try to hear if there's any noise behind the door. You do it again. "Hello, plumber." Do it again. Knock, knock, knock. "Hello, plumber." And you do this at minimum 3 times. I normally do it 3 times just to make sure that, look, I did my due diligence. I made sure to let you know that I'm here, okay? You know what I'm saying? The last thing that you want is somebody going, "Well, nobody knocked." "Oh, no, I knocked. I knocked 3 times. I knocked a little bit louder each time. I wasn't banging, but I knocked a little bit louder each time." That's another thing. Again, it's such an uncomfortable moment when you walk into a unit and people are like, "What are you doing in my unit?" Okay, it's such an uncomfortable moment. And that's really what I'm trying to help you avoid here, because I've had it happen to me in the past. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So once you've knocked and you've done your due diligence there, here's the next thing I want to point out. This is tip number 3. Coming and come in sound the exact same. When it's muffled behind a door, you don't know which one they've said. And that's a funny story I gotta tell you. My dad comes to a door one day, he knocks, he hears "come in," he opens the door. Guy goes, "What are you doing? I told you I was coming." And my dad goes, "Oh, I thought you said come in." Now look, again, that's a really awkward situation. What if the man wasn't dressed behind the door and my dad bolted through that door? Who do you think would have gotten in trouble? It would have been my father. Thankfully, it didn't work out as poorly as that, but that's why whenever you hear coming or come in, peeps, don't touch the door. Let them come and get it, okay? And if they get upset with you because they did say come in, you can tell them that very funny story I just told you, which was, I know a plumber that heard come in, but it was coming. They sound so similar. So my opinion is, if you hear that from behind the door and you can't tell which one it is, leave the door. Let them come and get it for you, sort of thing. And I would also say, make sure to knock every subsequent time you walk into that unit as well. Because look, from time to time, you're gonna start the work work, you're gonna go grab a tool, come back, and in that transitional period, they might think that you went for lunch, so, you know, they put up their feet for a second and they weren't ready for you and you blasted through the door and they're like, oh, you know, what's going on? And they're uncomfortable, so knock every time. It's usually good protocol. I would say stick to that. Tip number 4 is never blast through a door. Don't ever open a door as wide and as fast as possible. Never do that. So, and I'm talking about after you've done the previous steps, you've come there with a superintendent, you've knocked 3 times, louder and louder each time. You finally have access to the door, you open it, never blast through it. You always crack the door. You crack the door for a couple of reasons. The first reason is you have no idea if there's a Doberman pincer on the other side of that door. You also don't know if there's a cat back there. You open the door, out goes the cat, out goes the plumber. You know what I'm saying? You gotta go chase down that cat or that dog or whatever it is. That's another reason why you always crack the door. You don't know what's gonna meet you on the other side. Another reason, of course, is you don't know if somebody's standing behind that door. Maybe they're trying to figure out, who are you? Are you supposed to be here? And if you blast through it, you don't know if you're gonna hit somebody really hard. And what I would suggest at this point is you don't blast through the door because you're gonna crack it again and you're gonna yell again. You're gonna say, hello, it's the plumber, because maybe they couldn't hear you through that door and maybe you can finally get to them now with your voice. And that's another thing. You just have to try one more time because maybe somebody is home. You don't want to startle them. So you want to try to at least let them know, hey, I am here, and you want to make sure you did your due diligence there. The 5th tip that I want to give you is if you ever turn something on, make sure you go and turn it off. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but a lot of times and in a lot of circumstances, the plumber turns off the water to the building or to the riser line. Somebody will walk up to a sink, they'll turn on that sink, they'll realize no water is coming out, and they'll book it. They'll go out. They'll be like, oh man, you know, I gotta go shower at a friend's house. And then, lo and behold, the plumber turns on the water, that sink is still on, man. And that's how leaks happen. That's how it ends up happening. So, especially as the plumber, in a lot of circumstances, if I'm working on the 10th floor, in order to make sure that there's no water on the 10th floor, I have to, at minimum, start draining from the 9th floor so that I can work on the 10th floor. So there are a lot of instances that I do a riser shut off. I go to the 9th floor, I knock, I get the person from the unit and I say, look, I need to turn on the water so I can drain the system from everything above you. They go, no problem. I go into the bathtub, I turn on the water, I let it drain, I go do the work. And here's the thing, before I turn on the water, I gotta go back to the 9th floor. I gotta knock again. I gotta let them know, hey, I'm just gonna turn everything off, go and turn it off. And then you approach the same tenant and you say, look, I turned it off, but do me a favor, just hang out around the washroom for the next little while because I'm about to turn on the water, and if there's anything not holding correctly, I just want somebody here to be aware of it so I can get a panic phone call that says turn off the water or you gotta come up fast or something like that. You have to be in conversation with them as well, especially if there's a tenant home. It's usually easier that way because then you have team members if you don't have other people working with you that day, obviously. So that's an important lesson. Make sure if you turn something on in one unit, turn it off in that unit. And the 6th tip that I have for you is something I've already said before, but I have to reiterate it. Start and end the day with the superintendent. Make sure you lock every door that was opened by your hand or the superintendent's hand. You have to make sure. And the reason is because if you don't lock it, and God forbid somebody figures out that it's not locked, walks in and steals everything, a lot of people are going to be under the impression that that was on you or that was on the superintendent. And look, it's going to be a dispute. There's going to be some sort of law involved in this. So you're going to be in a hairy situation, in other words. So you don't want to get there. You don't want to be a part of that. What you want to do is make sure that you've covered your back and you've covered the superintendent's back if they've been helping you that entire time, okay? So any unit that you open needs to be locked, needs to be closed. You both need to verify it. You both need to be there so you can look at the door, see the super try it, or you try it and the super sees you try it and they see that it's been locked, okay? That's the only way you leave. That way, if somebody calls you the following day and they go, hey, there's been a break-in at the unit you were working at, you say, look, me and the super tried that door. So that was not us, that was on somebody else, sort of. So peeps, I hope this information helped you. Even though this is a smaller conversation in the plumbing world, it is super super important because a lot of really uncomfortable situations can arise if you don't enter a unit correctly. You know what I'm saying? So like, subscribe, comment below, and I'll see you plumbers very soon. Kenny Molotov, guys. Peace, baby.